Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm going to be talking about whether it's safe to be buying records from other countries off of sites like Discogs or eBay. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you go check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the Vinyl Den merch page, for our Spotify and Apple Music weekly playlist that we put together, and also the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. I'm sure I'm just like a lot of you out there. I buy a lot of records online, whether that's through sites like Amazon or Discogs or eBay. I'd say, I shouldn't say a lot. I probably buy 20 to 30% of my albums every year on websites like those. So I'm sure I'm probably, just like a lot of you out there. But I know that the question kind of comes up pretty regularly on, is it really safe to be buying records from other countries, especially when you're dealing with, with a site like Discogs, where you're not actually buying, or when you buy an album on there, you're not actually looking at a picture of the actual product. And over the last couple of years, I'd say out of the several hundred purchases I've done on Discogs, I've done maybe a dozen to two dozen from other countries outside of the U.S. On a site like eBay, I don't know if I've ever bought records from another country. Maybe once. I think I bought one album or two albums from Canada, which isn't that far away from the U.S. here. And I think I've bought a couple of CDs on eBay, but I would say a bulk of my international purchases have been on Discogs. And one thing I have noticed, at least lately, is if you're looking for a specific label, say like Music on Vinyl, who presses all of their albums over in Europe, you can generally find those albums cheaper in other countries than here in the U.S. Especially, like I said, especially with those MOV releases, they tend to be pretty limited. 2,000-3,000 releases. So if you're going to buy an album, if you look at the Warrant Cherry Pie, which is a great example of this. If you were to buy that here in the U.S., you're probably going to spend, on the low end, $80, on the high end, maybe $100 to buy that release on Discogs. Maybe not $80. Let's say $75 to $100 is a good price point for that new release on Discogs. Whereas if you look at buying it from a country like Spain or Germany, you can generally get that album for almost half of that. I did a whole video recently on that album in particular, how I was having a hard time getting pre-orders on it. I ended up buying a really good copy off of Discogs from, I think it was Spain, is where I got that album from. And I paid list price for it plus shipping. So I think after shipping and everything, I probably paid $45, maybe $50 for that album. And last time I looked on Discogs, the cheapest one you're going to buy here in the U.S., I want to say was $70 or $75. A majority of the ones that are listed here in the U.S. run $80 to $90 plus shipping on top of that. So you're getting closer to that $100 mark, compared to something I bought from Europe for, a fraction of that price. And that Warrant Cherry Pie is just one example. I could go on and on. There's lots of those like that. But for a majority of the releases out there, there tends to be a U.S. release and a European release, which is the same thing. They're just, they might be pressed at two different places, or they're pressed in one place and kind of released in two separate places. So it kind of gives you options on if you're unable to find a release here for a cheaper price. You can tend to generally find it in Europe for cheaper. But I think there's definitely some risks involved in buying international releases. Like I said, I bought, maybe a dozen or 2 dozen international releases over the last few years. I guess my big thing is when I'm buying it on Discogs, like I said before, it's generally where I do all my international purchases. I always make sure I go through the seller feedback and kind of read everything involved in there. I want to make sure I'm going to get a good product or the right product, the product I'm buying, and it's going to be shipped properly. And I think that's good advice for really doing any kind of purchase on Discogs. Always make sure you're looking at seller feedback on there and kind of seeing what it is. If I'm going to buy something, especially something from an international shipper, and they only have a couple of reviews on there, I'm probably gonna hold off on buying that and maybe buy it from somewhere else, or just kind of skip over that purchase altogether, just because I don't want to get in a situation where I buy something and it's shipped incorrectly, or it's the wrong product, or I never get anything at all, because that kind of stuff does happen. I think that looking at reviews is a good way to kind of safeguard yourself, and at least you're less likely to have issues with someone that has a reputable selling feedback on Discogs. Another rule that I kind of have when it comes to making international purchases on Discogs is I really kind of stay away from, or I try to stay away from, any Eastern European countries, specifically Russia, because a lot of those releases you tend to get a lot of counterfeit releases from that area. And like I said, when it comes to Discogs compared to eBay, is eBay you're able to see a picture of the product. On Discogs, it's just whatever the picture is for that release. So you're not always 100% sure if you're going to order from, or if you're buying an album from, say, Russia, whether or not you're going to get an official release or if it's some kind of counterfeit release. I know that when Pink Floyd released their Oh By The Way box set back in 2007, I think is when it came out, there was a lot of releases that came from Russia that were counterfeit releases. So if you go buy that box set on any kind of online site, you always have to be kind of leery about what you're buying. You have to make sure you're looking at things, looking at the way the words are specific words are written on the side of those box sets or on the bottom of those box sets to make sure you're not getting a counterfeit release. So I kind of, when it comes to, because of the issues with counterfeits, I kind of stay away from some of those countries. I think the two biggest pieces of advice I can give for making purchases online, whether it's through eBay, Discogs, whoever it is one, be mindful of the exchange rate. Do the math online, know what you're paying for an album, know how much you're going to pay for shipping too, because a lot of times, or sometimes, it's not exactly spelled out how much you're going to pay. And if there's any kind of ambiguity to what you're going to pay, make sure you contact that seller and find out exactly how much shipping is going to be on top of the purchase price. And the second piece, just kind of be mindful of that extended shipping time. Whenever I have ordered stuff from, I think the probably two biggest places I've ordered albums from is Spain, England, and I've gotten a lot of stuff from Sweden also, a lot of really great albums, is that extended lead time. I know that it's going to be a couple of weeks to get to me. I did order some stuff from Germany a couple of years ago. It was, 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks was a solid lead time. And then I've even ordered stuff from Japan where it's like 3 or 4 weeks out to get a release. But just doing your due diligence, just kind of making sure you're going to get what you're looking for at a good price, and kind of understanding that might take a little bit of time to get to you. I think you can have a really good, positive overall experience and get something good at a decent price. I think the biggest thing to say is, if you're looking at the purchasing something from outside the country you live in, I would say this for any kind of online purchase, is if it's too good to be true, it's probably not real. It's probably a scam. You're probably getting yourself into a risky situation purchasing something that, if something goes for $200 generally online and you see it listed for $75, $80, it's probably not real. And I would kind of stay away from those kind of purchases. And I think just kind of using some common sense can really make these online purchases from other countries, a good experience. And like I said before, there are some really good deals to be had out there, but if it's too good to be true, kind of stay away from it, I'd say. Of the couple of dozen online purchases that I made from other countries, I'd say all of them have been positive. I haven't had any issues, and maybe kind of being extra cautious has kind of saved me from some headaches out there. But drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Have you guys had issues before buying from outside the country you live in? I'd say a vast majority of the stuff I buy, of course, is from the U.S. I buy a lot from brick and mortar stores through Discogs also, but if I'm trying to find something, I can get a good deal buying something from England or Spain or Italy or something like that. I've got no problem buying it. If it's going to save me in the long run, if it is a good deal, and if I'm pretty sure I'm going to get what I'm looking for, I'll always kind of pull the trigger on it. I will say that if you ever have questions, contact the seller, ask the seller for pictures of that specific release, just kind of safeguard yourself. But of the couple of dozen online international purchases I've made, I think just kind of staying with some common sense rules have really kind of saved me a headache in the long run. Yeah, I probably missed out on some really good deals, but like I've always said, and like I said earlier in the video, if it's too good to be true, I'm gonna probably kind of pass on it. Also, make sure you're only using PayPal when you're making these international purchases or making any purchase online. If there's an instance where someone's only taking like a bank account or credit cards online, I was automatically kind of stay away from those. The safeguards that PayPal has in place. I know if there's an issue in the long run, I can get my money back. And there's a process I can go through. Yeah, it might take me a little while to get that refund, but at least I know there's assurances there that I'm not going to get stuck paying for something and never receiving it. But like I said earlier, of the couple of dozen international orders I've made through Discogs, through eBay, I've never had any issues, at least any that I can think of off the top of my head. But drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys have gone through. Have you guys had issues? I think, for me personally, kind of sticking to my rules I've got in place has really kind of saved me some headaches. But I want to know what you guys think. If you guys enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.